Hello and welcome to the Bucket Bros, everybody. It's been uh, quite a tumultuous weekend over the last few days. Lots of craziness, and we are happy that you guys are here. I am Ronnie. That is Bobby. I did it the wrong way on over there. We are both not
Hey
feeling our
everybody.
best, and he has disappeared into the dark. But we have some breaking. We're a little late, but we'll call it breaking news. There was a pretty big headline that happened over the weekend. Do you have anything to mention else before we get into it, Bobby?
Yeah, sorry we're a little late to this, folks. As you could tell by the timbre of my voice, I'm just not quite myself today. Feeling a little under the weather. This is going to be like my MJ flu game. Although I don't know how I could possibly drop 38 tonight. I'm going to do my best, though.
I think you can do it. You got at least the mindset, and we're here and we're doing it. You're present. You're here, ready to go. So let's get into some fast break news, and let's get into the main story. And as some of you have heard, a big trade just happened. Bobby, I'll let you kind
Using
of break down
trade.
the detail. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
a confounding trade, I would say. This
definitely.
this one is this one takes the cake. It's new to us. We've never really quite seen anything like this before. It's hard to actually start to put into words how you actually feel about this trade because it's just absolutely so absurd. Um, but I mean, as you guys saw, it's essentially Luka going to the Lakers, AD going to the Mavs. The Mavs were able to extract the 2029 first round pick unprotected from the Lakers with that, as well as Max Christie. And the Jazz got involved in the deal as well. They took on Huchefino and got a couple of seconds as well to make the deal happen. Um, I mean, the story even goes that Danny Ainge of the Jazz didn't really even know
Yes.
what kind of trade he was getting himself into before it happened. Knew that he was
Against his hate
facilitating something.
with his hated
Yeah,
Lakers.
yeah. Knew that he was facilitating something, but didn't even know quite what. That's how under wraps this was.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the best way I could explain it, and I know you all have probably heard this explanation thus far, is that the Mavs just, to some degree, saw the writing on the wall. Didn't really like the way Luka was conditioning or continuing to condition throughout his career. They were on the horizon of giving him the richest contract in NBA history, and they didn't want to be in the Luka business anymore. Um, Again, an unprecedented way to go about this. You would think that trading a guy like Luka, who is a, I don't know, you want to call him top 3 or top 5 player in the NBA, one of very few players that you could feel like you can truly build a championship team around. A guy who's like an offense in and of himself, just sort of a rare breed. I mean, literally a guy who led the league in scoring last year and averaged, what was it, 33, 9, and 9. Um, you just at age of 25, going on 26 here pretty soon, you do not see guys like this traded. Never happens. And yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways I feel like I could approach this. Like, why didn't the Mavs, get the 2031 pick out of the Lakers as well? Um, why didn't they just why weren't they a little bit more patient? Why didn't they shop around? Why didn't they make it more public knowledge? I mean, I know perhaps that it wasn't the most, it wouldn't have been the most fan friendly, uh, news to make that they were making Luca available, but just very obscure, very strange way to go about this.
Yeah, and it's from some unraveling and kind of seeing it, like you said, I think it's the conditioning. There's unconfirmed reports that he's has to have a beer before and after every game, and there's obviously that video of Michael Finley pulling the beer out of Luca's hand after them going on to the finals and beating the Timberwolves. So there's definitely kind of this they know a lot more about him than we do, or that any of the media is kind of putting out there. So I think that's kind of where we're putting this, and it's also the he's losing. Like they had the potential to re-sign him at that super mega $345 million super contract, and so he's eventually losing 117 million on this deal, which is just like, to me, another kick in the teeth, especially like thinking like this being such a surprise deal, and him thinking he's going to stay in Dallas for so long, as he referenced in his goodbye letter to Dallas. Um, and just like everybody else, kind of when I saw this, I was like, "Is this AI? Like, is this a real thing?" And just like all the NBA players, like Shams get hacked. Like I'm seeing his name, so it's like this is the real thing, but it's like this doesn't
Mhm.
seem right. And it's like, why would the Mavs take on AD? And it seems like it's a very uh, team friendly deal, at least for them to be able to work with the future of how they're going to rework their money and stuff. So I understand it, but it's so shocking to kind of give away and put him alongside LeBron, and to me that it's exciting. Obviously, it's LA, and you kind of like the glitz and glam. Obviously, he has all this stuff, so I think he'll fit right in. So I think that's the other part of this that makes it exciting, and I feel torn up for a lot of Mavs fans. I have talked to a few of them today, and it's like it's just like a gut punch, just because it was so shocking, and they were so into him having brought them to the finals last year. So I almost feel for them having them beat the Timberwolves last year. So, but I think it'd be like if Antlers was to leave the Timberwolves. To me, it would just be like, what is going on? It just doesn't make sense. It seems like we were building around him. So, but maybe they see Anthony Edwards has a bigger potential and Luka wasn't doing it. So, but I don't think that, because I think Luka is such a dominant scorer, like you mentioned. So, yeah, it's just kind of baffling, and trying to wrap your head around it.
Right, right. And it's strange too, because typically when we see star players get traded, there's a sense of disgruntlement leading up to the trade, right?
Hmm.
There's usually you'll see reporting on them being a
Well,
trade candidate before you even hear anything about from the player or the franchise. It's almost like a writing on the wall type picture, and there was none of that this time around.
Well,
It
there kind of
was
was. He did make a comment that they were firing a lot of people that were close to him, and there was multiple trainers and close staff that he had good relationships with that were there with the Mavericks before he was drafted. Um, and they started getting rid of some of the people that were in kind of his inner circle within the Mavericks. So there was a little bit, but it's not something that people noticed, obviously, until now. You're like, oh, now it makes sense. So I think that, but as far as like the trade rumors and stuff, like you said, and the way Shams laid it out in one of the videos I saw, he thought it was a different Dallas player, as far as the grumblings that he was starting to hear, and then all of a sudden it kind of took a turn. So yeah, it's I not as far as like thinking that he, like you said, there was no major things that they were saying about him, but, and again, Brian Windhorst made the comment too when he ripped Luka like in Dallas, and he said like the Mavs fans when he was there at the arena were calling him out, but he said the Mavs organization never said a thing to him. So I think there was some of that, and people were seeing that there might be a possibility with this. So it's definitely interesting to kind of keep peeling away at this onion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that there's this is an onion of a trade because there are so
Yeah.
many layers to it. Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting the point that you make about Windhurst and how the Mavs didn't really give any pushback on those comments. I mean, he called the guy out and appropriately so, but it almost seemed like something that would propel a player like this, not a lead to his eventual shooing out of a franchise. The Mavs ownership or Mavs GM sort of disguised their intentions by saying defense wins championships, which I guess there's some truth to that, but I'm not really sure that was like the real theme of what was going on here. I mean, as
because
Tim Bontemps said, like this is like the Big Short on Luka, and time will tell if he's a guy that would have aged well under a supermax.
yeah, well, the thing is that they're saying like you couldn't win around defense wins championships. Dallas won with Dirk, who was notoriously not a great defender, and they built the team around him. So it's possible. So just that mindset to me, it's like there was something else going on within the organization because it was done in 2011 in Dallas. So that's to me that's kind of the crazy thing.
Yeah. And it's not like this was a middling team. I mean, they literally just made it to the finals last year. I mean, they got their butts handed to them by the Celtics, but so did a lot of other teams. And I kind of saw it as a building block, a step in the right direction for them. Maybe not necessarily that they were going to make it back to the finals this year, especially with Luka dealing with the injury. But that said, I mean, the trades that they made for Gafford and PJ Washington, a lot of people were critical of those. I mean, we didn't have this podcast at that time, but I think I would have taken the opposite stance because I actually did like them in spite of the fact that they gave up some first to make it happen. And what do you know? They closed the season better than anybody else in the league, and then made a run all the way to the finals. So you kind of felt like the team was there already. I mean, yes, like you said, like the Mavs won a championship around a very much offensively minded player, but Luka's already shown that he steps up in big moments. He's a big time playoff contender. He's the kind of guy that even if you don't have the team, can expect to win some exciting games against other good teams in the playoff setting. So just very, very bizarre all around. I did make a bad joke on our outline here that I didn't say, but I was wondering if the Adelsons accidentally mistook Kyrie for Luka and didn't realize till after the trade that they had traded the wrong guy. Because, if you had told me without saying what's outgoing from the Mavs that the Mavs just landed AD, Max Christie, and an unprotected first round pick, I'd say, wow, that's quite the bag that they got. What did they send out? Did they send out Kyrie? What happened there? And but then you tell me Luka, and suddenly it just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, and we're coming up to a meme here that I sent you earlier, kind of about just the fact that they only got one first round pick. Meanwhile, Rudy Gobert, when the Timberwolves had to give up 4 for him. So it's kind of ridiculous that ended up happening. Yeah, here it's just you're like, and I think that's why Mavs fans are so upset because they're this guy. They're like, what? Like, yeah, 80, but he's older and often injury prone. He's obviously a great player. But he doesn't have the sparkle, I think, of Luka. And that's why, and then for just kind of getting back, not the compensation that you would kind of assume for a superstar as well. So I'm curious to see how this all turns out. Like I think it's February 25th, so we got a few days until the Lakers play the Mavericks, and then that will be all eyes on that.
Yeah.
On TNT.
Well, you made a great point just now that they sent out a guy who is early in his prime to bring back. A star player, but like you said, on the wrong side of 30, who. Although he has been a little bit of a tank, over the past couple seasons, AD obviously known to be injury prone. That said, looking at this from the Mavs perspective a little bit more, let's move past the bafflement of the Luka portion of it. They do have a great team. There's no question about it. A little center heavy, and so it almost makes sense that Derek Lively's injured for them this year, just because otherwise it'd be a little bit congestion at the center position. Although, according to AD, he doesn't play center anyway, so maybe that wouldn't be such a big deal. But then on top of it, Max Christie is exactly the type of player that the Mavs needed. He's a young guy, a lot of energy, good backcourt defender, decent size, good 3-and-D guy, playing with a lot of confidence this year. So then if we flip over to the Lakers' perspective on it, the Lakers are a bad team right now. I mean, they have LeBron and Luka, but what else is going on in that squad right now? You're starting to see reports that they're aggressively shopping for a center, and it's like, well, yeah, no duh, because you don't have one. I mean, unless you're going to play Jackson Hayes and for the rest of the year, but yeah, I mean that was something that was bound to happen if they were planning on continuing to be competitive this year. It's not like they're trying to just squabble away what little LeBron, has left in the tank for them.
Yeah, no, I saw it was like Podol from Toronto, a couple other spots.
Pirtle, actually, if you can believe that. You pronounce that one Pirtle.
You got me. So yeah, they're shopping. To me, they're going to make a deal. Obviously, it's not going to be an AD replacement. Sure. It's going to be a shell and just kind of a body down there. And obviously, you're going to have an amazing 3 and 4. And just try to light it up and hopefully have some sort of rim protector. Hey, Rudy Gobert might be available. Well, and I don't know what we want to get back from him, but
from the Lakers at this point, there's not much left.
Yeah,
there's not much left.
They have
one pick. Yeah, they have one pick and perhaps some swaps, but even just in terms of assets with talent, which again, to the Mavs' credit, they did get back 2 solid players, which is why that you're not going to see as big of a collection of draft picks. It's not like they made this deal to like the Hawks or whatever, where they would have expected to get like young players in the bag of picks or anything like that. But yeah, that was a random team I brought up. There was no intention there with the Hawks.
But we do have some other teams to talk about, unless you have anything else to say on Luka or Luka AD. Do you have any last thoughts? Because this is a big one, and I don't want to take away any time, because I'm trying to think back. I'm like, this has to be the biggest NBA trade just because of the 2 top 20 players in the league traded for each other, essentially, plus some sprinkle, and I'm not going to say sprinkle, some other players that can go into this. So it's, to me, I can't think of anything similar unless something comes to your mind.
Yeah, I mean, two guys coming off of all NBA seasons, which is the first time that's ever been done, a swap like that. This was obviously a no-brainer for the Lakers. It kind of seems like this was, based on what's being reported out there, this was a trade that happened behind closed doors. There was very few people involved in the decision-making here. It was basically like GM to GM over coffee, and which, in part, I think is why they, the Mavs got what they got. It's just because there wasn't enough people involved to say like, no, actually we should try to go this route or that route. I mean, I could see why they did it that way. It was kind of, it seems like
then it makes it sound more like a grudge then too, that it's like, oh, we got to get rid of this guy. And it seems like they initiated everything with Pelinka too. So, and yeah. Oh, excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, it's something's going on.
I mean, I could.
Well, I think what you were leading into was how I think with Luka, this kind of extends LeBron. Is their timeline of kind of where their head's at as far as how they proceed as going forward with a superstar on their team?
Yeah. I mean, certainly, for the post LeBron years, you do wonder like, what is this Lakers franchise going to do? Because that they're going to want to be competitive. They're going to have a star player. Well, think no more. Now we know exactly what the Lakers' future beholds. And I did certainly have a thought of like, well, is this the time for? I know he said otherwise, but is this the time for LeBron to part ways with the Lakers? I did say. And maybe we have it recorded somewhere in one of our earlier podcasts. Like, I could just very much see LeBron being Yeah, I could very much see him being a Warrior, and I've said that even since last offseason. So when he signed another deal with the Lakers, I mean, it wasn't terribly surprising, but I mean, I kind of saw the Warriors being actually a good fit for LeBron, not just a way for him to hang out with Steph, but actually play competitive basketball with the collective skills that they have for guys who are 35 and up here.
Yeah. Well,
I like that
the thing
you're
is, I was going to say the Warriors right now, as of about 15 minutes before we started recording this, they're actively calling uh, to know about every single All Star. They've called every team that has an All Star, and we're inquiring about like if they're tradable. So the Warriors are moving. They're doing something too. They're shaking trees all over the place right now. So it's curious to see where this is going.
yeah. I don't know what all they would offer to get a guy like KD, for example. Um, it's one of the most ridiculous statements to say that KD would be the best fix to their problems. That's another onion of a statement. Just because it's like a
Just
no, it's such a
imagine.
no-duh
Just
statement for
imagine.
any team. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine KD playing for the Warriors? How ridiculous that would be.
Yeah, they would easily win.
But I am curious to see how the Lakers, shop for another player to help fill out the roster moving forward. I do wonder if they're going to get off of Austin Reeves at this point because between Luka and LeBron, between Luka and LeBron, they really have enough ball handling to go around that, unless Austin Reeves is going to be just like a purely off ball guy. I don't know. I feel like he would be, with his contract, especially. I feel like he would be a player that a lot of teams would be willing to take on. And
I'm loving
on,
the white boy memes too much though, with the exciting whites of Dalton Connect and Luca. So yeah, we need a. It'll be curious to
and
see
I
if
mean
they
one.
make. Go ahead.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
say one thing's for sure that and maybe Dorian Finney-Smith would have something to say about this, but the the Lakers got off of their two best defensive players. There's no defense on that team right now. I mean, they were already a weak defensive team as it was, but yeah, I mean, the Mavs gutted their defense. So, I mean, I hope defense does win championships for the Mavs' sake, but for the Lakers, it's I mean, they're really going to have to. I don't foresee this being a trade for the Lakers that is meant to win this season, which is a weird thing to say about a 40-year-old LeBron. This is definitely a move for the future. And I think that it's going to be clunky for the Lakers finishing out the rest of the year. I really do. I mean, maybe they end up in the playoffs, sure, but this isn't a championship team, and the amount of moves that they would have to make before the deadline, it wouldn't make any sense to consider them a championship team. So,
Hey,
I still,
they haven't unleashed G League Bronny yet, averaging 17 points a game. I've
yeah,
seen him dunking on people. He's starting to feel himself. So just you wait. They're going to unlock Bronny, and then that's going to bring out Papa LeBron.
yeah. I mean, my heart goes out to Mavs fans here for this move because this again just completely unprecedented. I know everybody's sick of hearing that term. But yeah, I guess we can move on. We can move on to the other big trade that happened.
Yeah, so we've got
Ooh-wee.
a big one. De'Aaron Fox has been moved to go and team up with Victor Wembanyama. Meanwhile, the Bulls have shipped Zach Lavine off to Sacramento. In the mix of this, I think was it Kevin Herter's with the Bulls. I think I've got that here. So yeah, kind of a three-team deal. Do you have all the specifics on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can run through the deal itself real quick. Oh, there you go. You got it pulled up. Um, yeah, essentially so ever since here, let me just say this: ever since De'Aaron Fox was declared made available, the Spurs have kind of been the favorites to get him. Not just for fit, but also for what they can throw at the Kings in order to acquire him. And then the Bulls swoop in and just do him a big favor and essentially act as facilitators for the trade. They're like, "Oh, you need some matching money? Here, let's throw Zach Lavine into the mix. well, we're going to replace your shooting guard. Well, I guess De'Aaron Fox is a little bit more of a point guard, but we're going to replace your scoring guard. And we're even going to give you a second round pick to help make it happen. I really like this trade for the Spurs. I do. Even if it doesn't work out, they didn't have to give up that much. They only had to give up one of their picks. That 2031 T-Wolves pick that they had is a little juicy. So that's probably, I guess, the biggest asset that they had to come off of in order to make this happen. But I mean, with the timeline that you have for Victor, and by that I mean the amount of time you have for Victor and his development, and the fact that the Spurs are already competitive. Obviously, their first round picks are going to mean less and less as years goes on, as long as Victor remains healthy. And I mean, De'Aaron Fox definitely fits like a primary scoring role for them that they needed. I think he's gonna look great next to Wemby. It might be weird at first, but yeah, I really like what they did here.
What's funny is that Chris Paul is again playing with another premier point guard. Like he's played with like SGA, Harden, Russell. So it's just nuts the amount of teammates that he's had. But it also pairs up DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine again. And they were good buds. So I don't know if maybe that was another part of how Zach ended up in Sacramento. So it's we'll see how that plays out. To me, the Kings are always kind of an interesting team. They kind of do this kind of roller coaster in the standings, at least over the last few weeks. So it'll be curious to see how their chemistry kind of gets together, and hopefully it kind of starts fast if they already have some time played together and kind of understand what the other one's looking for. Yeah. So the Bulls, though, I think, are they a sinking ship now, or how do you see anything going on with them as far as hoping for a high pick next year or trying to get in the lottery?
So, yeah, kind of an interesting trade for the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls have been really good at just staying like net neutral to like -1. For a team that should be rebuilding, they just have yet to be able to collect like positive draft assets. I mean, the Spurs have a net positive draft assets even after acquiring De'Aaron Fox. Meanwhile, the Bulls gave up a contract that they were clearly trying to get off of, and I can respect that, but just to essentially get their own pick back, which is a big deal these days. It gives the team a lot more flexibility. It makes it so that they didn't have to worry about not just this lottery, but the next two to come. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I think that if the Bulls were able to keep their first round pick this year, that may have gone to a second. So a lot of people are giving them flack for this, just because you feel like they could have gotten more, which is sort of how we talk about every trade that the Bulls make. They could have gotten more. They could have gotten more. I mean, I think if you go through the timeline, you sort of add up all the trades together, they essentially got off of Lavine, DeRozan, and Alex Caruso, and and their net positive was Josh Giddey. I mean, they got their own pick back, but there's no extra picks coming back to them for this. I mean, so here, going back to the Spurs, just to put this in perspective, the Spurs, in order to acquire De'Aaron Fox, did not have to come off of Stephon Castle. They didn't have to give up Julian Champagnie. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to give up Keldon Johnson. They didn't have to give up Jeremy Sohan. I mean, I know that he's not like amongst the list of people I could create. They didn't have to come off of Devin Vassell even. I mean, what they were able to keep, the team that they were able to maintain here is absolutely stunning. The Bulls could certainly take a page out of their book. And so, like I said, the Bulls did them a big, big favor. I mean, I guess it, if nothing else for the Bulls, it kind of allows them to sort of focus on the young talent that they have, future moves, probably, if not just before this deadline, but over the next season and a half. And hopefully, not winning too many games so that they can actually make some good draft picks over the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, to me, I'm all in on the Spurs. I feel like if the T-Wolves all of a sudden the wheels come off, I'm jumping on the Spurs bandwagon. To me that they were a fun team before this, and then they go and add one of my favorite players. So yeah, it's hard for me to not want to root for them, especially too kind of with Pop kind of on the men. I don't know if he's on the men, but at least he's in the background trying to get better. Hats off to Pop. So but yeah, I just want to root for the Spurs. It just seems like a fun, gritty team. A lot of young guys, plus Chris Paul. So yeah, to me this is exciting, and I will probably watch a few more Kings games. And unfortunately, with the blackout rules, I won't see any more Bulls games. Not that I'm too upset about that.
Hey, if you want to watch a lot of 3-point shooting, watch the Bulls play. The Bulls might actually be able to revive Kevin Huerter in this. Yeah,
I mean the contracts. No, go ahead. What about Kevin Huerter?
No, I was just gonna say that the contracts that the Bulls picked up on this, they got a little bit of flack for it just because they did take on undesirable contracts and are therefore still have a decent amount of outgoing money in the next year or two with these guys. But I mean, Trey Jones, I would say is. If they don't ship him back out before the deadline, he's a good excuse me, folks. He's a good backup point guard. Kevin Huerter, who was kind of like on the fringe of the rotation for the Kings. Again, the Bulls are just firing away from deep, so he might actually be able to have a role here. I don't know how much playing time we're going to see from Zach Collins backing up. Well, I mean, really, he's not just going to be backing up Vucevic. I mean, he's going to be like their third string center, unless Vucevic goes out, which obviously everybody's been talking about. So, we didn't really. Sorry,
I was going to say I don't see the regular Bulls, but maybe they'll put them down in the G League, and I'll see them show up with the Windy City Bulls. So I do get my Bulls full, and I talking to coaches and stuff on the. So maybe we'll get some behind the scenes and ask about some new acquisitions that maybe will make an appearance in the G League. So we'll see.
Well, I can't. I mean, if Zach Collins was in the G League, he would be the highest paid G League player, that's for sure. Now, just to touch base on the Kings side of this, I don't think that they necessarily got more competitive, but they did get a lot of draft capital. They were able to replace De'Aaron Fox with a very similar player. I mean, even if just statistically, again, Zach Lavine, not a point guard type, but he's been a hyper efficient scorer, over the past most of the past few years anyway. And we know what he is, right? He's going to give you like 25, 4 and 5, give or take, and he's going to make he's going to be shooting like 50, 40, 85 essentially year after year. I feel like a guy could play it really well off of Sabonis. Doesn't need the ball in his hands to do well. And do I think that the Kings are going to climb up the standings after this one? No, but overall, I think that they got a pretty decent return for De'Aaron Fox.
Agreed. Well, I think we both need to heal up and mend. We will try to come back unless you have any other added thoughts. I think those two big stories were kind of the highlights that we wanted to kind of touch on and at least put something out there because this is a big, big story. So, Bobby, do you have any other thoughts, any other comments after these two kind of blockbuster trades trickled into your stream?
Just after the bar that was set by the Mavs, I'm curious to see what other trades roll out for the last few days here.
Yeah, and it's funny, like if we were to go back a couple episodes, we were both kind of like, oh, we weren't sure if there was going to be any kind of trade action. To me, I was thinking it was going to be pretty quiet. They definitely boom, boom, boom. We're completely wrong. So let's hope that they keep making us more wrong and we have some more exciting trades come along. And hopefully none of them have to do with Anthony Edwards.
There you go. Well said.
All right, everybody. This has been the Bucket Bros. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Take care.